Fear does not always sound afraid. Sometimes it sounds intelligent. It tells you to think one more time, prepare for every possibility, trust no one, and never relax because something could go wrong. You call it being careful, but fear may be controlling your entire life while pretending to protect you. The truth is, overthinking is not always wisdom, worry is not always preparation, and expecting pain does not make you stronger. It only forces you to experience the same suffering before it even arrives. Buddhism teaches that you cannot create a peaceful life while allowing every frightened thought to control your actions. These 7 lessons will help you recognize fear's disguises and defend your mind before your own thoughts become your greatest enemy. 1. Fear often pretends to be wisdom. Fear does not always appear as panic. Sometimes it sounds calm, careful, and intelligent. It says, "I am only trying to protect you." Then it reminds you of past pain, tells you not to trust anyone, and warns you not to begin because you may fail. This is why fear is difficult to recognize. It often feels like wisdom, but there is an important difference. Wisdom gives you clarity and helps you take action. Fear creates confusion and keeps you trapped in endless possibilities. Wisdom may tell you to be careful. Fear tells you to avoid everything. Wisdom prepares you for life. Fear stops you from living it. Ask yourself, is this thought helping me, or is it only making me suffer? If it gives you no useful action and only repeats danger, it may not be wisdom. It may be fear pretending to protect you. 2. Your mind can hurt you with things that never happened. Your mind can make you suffer from events that have not even happened. You imagine being rejected, losing someone, failing, or facing a disaster. Although none of it is real yet, your body reacts as if the danger is already present. Buddhism teaches that imagined pain can feel real when you keep repeating it in your mind. The feeling may be real, but the story causing it may not be true. Ask yourself, is this happening right now, or am I imagining the worst? Do not suffer tomorrow's problems today. Face what is real in this moment, and allow the future to arrive in its own time. 3. Overthinking is sometimes avoidance in disguise. Many people believe they are overthinking because they are trying to make the perfect decision. They tell themselves, "I just need more time, I need to understand everything," or "I must be completely sure before I act." But sometimes, overthinking is not careful thinking. Sometimes, it is fear delaying the action you already know you need to take. You may keep analyzing a relationship because accepting the truth feels painful. You may replay the same conversation because you are afraid to speak honestly. You may continue planning because beginning creates the possibility of failure. Thinking feels safer than acting. As long as you remain inside your mind, you do not have to risk rejection, disappointment, or change. But the longer you delay, the heavier the decision becomes. Buddhism teaches that wisdom is not found only through thinking. It is also found through awareness, experience, and right action. Sometimes, clarity does not come before the first step. It appears after you begin moving. Ask yourself, what am I avoiding by continuing to think about this? Perhaps you already know that you need to set a boundary. Perhaps you need to leave a situation that keeps hurting you. Perhaps you need to start the work, make the call, or accept that you cannot control the result. Overthinking often demands complete certainty, but life rarely gives complete certainty. You can think carefully, examine the facts, and prepare wisely, but eventually you must choose. There is a difference between reflection and avoidance. Reflection leads to understanding and action. Avoidance keeps you repeating the same questions without making progress. When your thoughts become endless, stop asking, "What else should I think about?" Instead, ask, "What is the smallest wise action I can take right now?" One honest step can teach you more than 100 fearful thoughts. Overthinking may make you feel busy, but movement is what changes your life. Sometimes, the mind does not need another answer. It needs the courage to act. 4. The thought you fight often returns stronger. When a frightening or unwanted thought enters your mind, your first reaction may be to push it away. You may tell yourself, "I must stop thinking about this. Why is this thought still here?" Or, "Something is wrong with me for thinking this way." But the more desperately you try not to think about something, the more attention your mind gives to it. For example, tell yourself not to think about a black bird. Immediately, your mind creates an image of a black bird. The same thing happens with fear. When you constantly check whether the thought has disappeared, you are actually bringing it back again. Buddhism teaches that resistance can create more suffering than the thought itself. A thought may enter your mind for a few seconds, but fighting, judging, and fearing it can keep it alive for hours. You begin with one uncomfortable thought, then you create another thought about it. Why am I feeling this? After that comes another fear. What if I never feel normal again? Soon, the original thought has grown into a complete storm. The problem is no longer only the thought. The problem is the struggle you have created around it. Instead of fighting the thought, learn to observe it calmly. You can say, "A fearful thought has appeared," rather than saying, "This fear is the truth." You can notice it without arguing with it, analyzing it, or allowing it to control your next action. Imagine that your thoughts are leaves floating down a river. You can watch each leaf pass without jumping into the water and chasing it. Some thoughts will move slowly, and some may return, but you do not have to follow them. This does not mean you agree with every thought. It means you stop giving every thought the power to disturb your entire day. A thought is not a command. It is not always a warning, a prediction, or a hidden truth. Sometimes it is only mental noise created by stress, tiredness, old memories, or fear. The mind may say, "You are going to fail." You do not need to fight it by shouting, "No, I will not." Simply notice it and return to what you are doing. The mind may say, "Something bad is going to happen." You can respond, "That is a possibility my mind is imagining, but it is not happening right now." When you stop treating every thought like an emergency, your nervous system begins to calm down. The thought may still appear, but it will no longer feel as powerful. Buddhist meditation teaches this exact skill. During meditation, thoughts continue to arise. The goal is not to force the mind to become completely empty. The goal is to notice thoughts without becoming trapped inside them. Each time your attention wanders and you gently return to your breath, you are training yourself not to follow every mental story. At first, the same thought may return many times. Do not become frustrated. Its return does not mean it is important or true. It only means your mind has practiced that thought for a long time. A thought repeated for years will not disappear in one moment, but every time you observe it without feeding it, you weaken the old habit. Think of fear as an uninvited guest standing at your door. You do not need to attack the guest, but you also do not need to invite them inside, prepare a meal, and allow them to stay all night. You can acknowledge their presence and refuse to give them control of your home. The same is true for your mind. Let the thought arrive, let it remain for a moment, and let it leave when it is ready. Your freedom does not begin when frightening thoughts completely disappear. It begins when those thoughts can appear without controlling your peace, decisions, and behavior. What you desperately fight often becomes stronger. What you calmly observe eventually loses its power. 5. Worry can become an addiction to false control. Worry often feels useful because it gives you the illusion that you are doing something. You may believe that if you think about every possible problem, you will be prepared for anything. You may imagine betrayal before it happens, failure before you begin, or loss before anything has been taken from you. Your mind says, "Keep thinking, there may be one more danger you have not noticed." But worry does not give you real control. It only makes you suffer before anything has actually happened. This is one of fear's most convincing tricks. It makes pain feel like preparation. You may stay awake at night thinking about tomorrow, believing that your worry will somehow protect you. But the next morning, the problem is still there, and now you are tired, emotionally weak, and unable to think clearly. Buddhism teaches that suffering grows when we try to control what cannot be controlled. You can control your actions, your words, your preparation, and the effort you make. But you cannot control every result, every person, every change, or every event that may happen in the future. For example, you can prepare carefully for an interview, but you cannot completely control the interviewer's decision. You can love someone honestly, but you cannot force them to remain loyal. You can take care of your health, but you cannot guarantee that life will never become difficult. When you demand complete control from life, your mind remains tense because life can never give you that promise. Worry then becomes a habit. Every time uncertainty appears, your mind begins creating frightening possibilities. You start believing that thinking more will make you safer. But there is a difference between planning and worrying. Planning gives you a clear action. Worry repeats the same fear without creating a solution. Planning says, I will prepare the documents tonight. Worry says, what if everything goes wrong? Planning says, I will speak honestly and calmly. Worry says, what if they leave me forever? Planning moves you forward. Worry keeps you trapped in the same place. Ask yourself, is there anything useful I can do right now? If the answer is yes, take that action. Make the call, create the plan, ask the question, set the boundary, or prepare what you can. If the answer is no, continuing to worry will not change the situation. It will only steal your peace from the present moment. Sometimes, people worry because they believe relaxing would be irresponsible. They feel guilty when they stop thinking about the problem. They may believe, if I am not worried, it means I do not care. But peace does not mean you do not care. Peace means you have done what you can, and you are refusing to punish yourself for what remains outside your control. Buddhism teaches right effort. Right effort means using your energy wisely. It does not mean exhausting yourself by mentally fighting events that have not happened. Imagine holding a glass of water in your hand. The glass may not be heavy at first, but if you hold it for several hours, your arm begins to hurt. Worry works in the same way. A problem may be small, but carrying it inside your mind all day makes it feel unbearable. Sometimes, the problem is not the weight itself. It is how long you refuse to put it down. You are allowed to rest before the situation is completely solved. You are allowed to laugh, even when your future is uncertain. You are allowed to enjoy today without first receiving a guarantee about tomorrow. Life has always been uncertain. Worry does not remove that uncertainty. It only prevents you from experiencing the peace that is available now. When your mind begins imagining every possible disaster, remind yourself, I do not need to solve a problem that has not arrived. Then bring your attention back to the next useful step. Perhaps the future will be difficult. Perhaps it will be better than you expected. The truth is that you do not know. Do not allow fear to convince you that the worst possibility is the only possibility. Worry may promise protection, but it often becomes a private form of punishment. It makes you experience pain again and again without giving you any real power. You do not protect yourself by suffering in advance. You protect yourself by staying aware, preparing wisely, acting when action is possible, and releasing what you cannot control. Real peace begins when you understand that you do not need control over everything. You only need the strength to respond wisely when life arrives. 6. Your mind believes what you repeat. Your mind does not always believe what is true. Very often, it begins to believe whatever you repeat most frequently. A fearful thought may enter your mind only once, but when you repeat it every day, it slowly becomes a belief. When that belief is repeated for months or years, it begins to shape the way you see yourself, other people, and the world around you. You may tell yourself, something bad is going to happen. At first, it is only one thought, But when you repeat it again and again, your mind begins searching for evidence that danger is everywhere. A delayed message feels like rejection. A small mistake feels like the beginning of failure. A quiet moment feels like a warning that something is wrong. Nothing dangerous may actually be happening, but your mind has been trained to expect danger. This is why your inner voice matters so much. The words you repeat inside yourself are not harmless. They are instructions. They teach your mind what to notice, what to expect, and how to react. If you repeatedly say, "I am weak," your mind will remember every moment when you struggled and ignore every moment when you showed courage. If you repeatedly say, "Nobody can be trusted," your mind will begin treating kindness with suspicion. Even when a good person enters your life, fear may convince you that they are hiding something. If you repeatedly say, "I always fail," your mind will forget the many situations you survived, solved, or handled successfully. It will focus only on your disappointments, because that is the story you have trained it to believe. Buddhism teaches that the mind is shaped through habit. Thoughts that are repeated become familiar. What becomes familiar begins to feel true, even when it is not completely true. This is one of the most dangerous things about negative thinking. A thought does not need evidence to become powerful. It only needs repetition. You may have heard a painful sentence from someone many years ago. Perhaps a parent told you that you would never become successful. Perhaps a teacher made you feel unintelligent. Perhaps someone you loved made you believe you were difficult to love. That person may no longer be in your life, but their voice may still be living inside your mind. Every time you say, "I am not good enough," you repeat the injury. Every time you say, "Nobody will ever choose me," you allow an old rejection to speak about your future. Every time you say, "I cannot change," you turn a temporary struggle into a permanent identity. This is how other people's words can continue controlling you long after they are gone. They may have spoken the sentence once, but you repeat it thousands of times. At some point, you must ask yourself, whose voice is this? Is this truly what you believe, or is it something fear taught you? Is this your own wisdom, or are you repeating the judgment of someone who never understood you? Not every thought in your mind belongs to you. Some thoughts were placed there by painful experiences, careless people, social expectations, comparison, rejection, and disappointment. But just because a thought has lived inside you for a long time does not mean it deserves to stay forever. Buddhism teaches that the mind can be trained. This means your current patterns are not your final condition. You may have practiced fear for many years, but you can begin practicing awareness today. However, changing your inner voice does not mean lying to yourself. You do not need to stand in front of a mirror and say, "My life is perfect," when you are clearly struggling. Your mind may reject words that feel completely false. Instead, replace destructive thoughts with honest and balanced ones. When your mind says, "I cannot handle this," do not force yourself to say, "I can handle everything." Say, "This is difficult, but I can take one step at a time." When your mind says, "I always fail," say, "I have failed before, but I have also learned, survived, and improved." When your mind says, "Something terrible will happen," say, "Many outcomes are possible. I do not know that the worst one will happen." When your mind says, "Nobody cares about me," say, "I feel lonely right now, but a painful feeling is not proof that I am completely alone." These statements do not ignore reality. They help you see reality more clearly. Fear speaks in extremes. It uses words such as always, never, everyone, nobody, everything, and nothing. It says, "I always make mistakes." It says, "Nobody respects me." It says, "Everything is going wrong." It says, "I will never recover." These words make temporary pain feel permanent. They take one difficult moment and turn it into a complete story about your life. Buddhist awareness teaches you to notice these exaggerations. Perhaps everything is not going wrong. Perhaps one part of your life is difficult. Perhaps nobody has not abandoned you. Perhaps one person disappointed you. Perhaps you do not always fail. Perhaps one attempt did not succeed. Clear thinking does not deny pain. It prevents pain from becoming larger than the truth. Imagine that your mind is like a path through a forest. Every time you walk on the same path, it becomes easier to follow. The grass disappears, the ground becomes firm, and your feet naturally move in that direction. Thoughts work in the same way. Every time you repeat a fearful thought, you strengthen that mental path. After enough repetition, your mind begins walking down it automatically. You wake up and immediately expect a bad day. Someone does not reply, and you automatically assume they are angry. You make a small mistake, and your mind immediately says, "You are a failure." These reactions feel natural, but they are not necessarily natural. They are practiced. The hopeful truth is that you can create a new path. At first, the new thought may feel uncomfortable. It may feel weak compared with the old belief, because the old belief has been repeated for years. When you say, "I am learning to trust myself," another voice may respond, "No, you are not." When you say, "One mistake does not define me," your mind may immediately remember 10 other mistakes. Do not become discouraged. The old thought feels powerful because you have practiced it more often. It is not powerful because it is more truthful. A new way of thinking needs patience and repetition. You cannot repeat fear for 10 years and expect one peaceful sentence to erase it instantly. But every time you choose a wiser thought, you begin weakening the old pattern. Every time you notice, "I am imagining the worst again," you are becoming more aware. Every time you replace self-attack with self-understanding, you are training your mind differently. Every time you refuse to repeat a painful story, you are protecting your future from your past. This is not about becoming positive all the time. Buddhism does not ask you to pretend that suffering does not exist. It teaches you to see suffering clearly without creating more suffering through careless thought. There will be difficult days. There will be moments when fear returns. There will be times when your mind repeats an old sentence before you can stop it. That does not mean you have failed. The first thought may come from conditioning. What you do next comes from awareness. You may not control the first fearful thought that enters your mind, but you can control whether you feed it, repeat it, and build your entire day around it. Suppose your mind says, "They have not replied because they no longer care about me." You can immediately repeat that thought until you become anxious, angry, and emotionally exhausted. Or you can pause and say, "I do not know why they have not replied. My mind is creating an explanation without enough evidence." That pause protects you. It prevents one assumption from becoming an emotional storm. Suppose you make a mistake at work, and your mind says, "I am going to lose everything." Instead of repeating the disaster, ask, "What has actually happened?" Perhaps you made one mistake. Perhaps it can be corrected. Perhaps you need to apologize, learn, or ask for help. The mind jumps toward the worst conclusion because fear wants certainty. It would rather believe in a terrible answer than remain inside uncertainty. But a terrible prediction is not the same as truth. You must learn to separate what happened from what your mind added. What happened? Someone spoke to you in a cold voice. What your mind added? They hate you, everyone is against you, and you will be abandoned. What happened? One plan failed. What your mind added? Your future is destroyed and you will never succeed. What happened? You felt anxious. What your mind added? Something terrible must be about to happen. Your emotional suffering often comes not only from the event, but from the meaning your mind repeatedly gives to the event. Buddhism teaches right thought because thoughts influence actions. When you repeatedly believe you are unsafe, you may avoid opportunities that could help you grow. When you repeatedly believe you are unlovable, you may accept unhealthy treatment because you think you cannot receive anything better. When you repeatedly believe failure is unbearable, you may never begin the work that could change your life. When you repeatedly believe that people will leave, you may become controlling, distant, or suspicious, eventually damaging the very relationship you wanted to protect. A thought may begin silently, but it can eventually shape your entire life. This is why protecting your mind requires careful attention to the sentences you repeat. Ask yourself, would I speak to someone I love the way I speak to myself? Many people would never tell a friend, "You are useless. You ruin everything. Nobody will ever love you." Yet they repeat these words to themselves every day. They believe cruelty will make them stronger. They think attacking themselves will force them to improve. But shame does not always create growth. Often it creates fear, hiding, exhaustion, and hopelessness. Compassion does not mean making excuses. You can recognize your mistakes without destroying your identity. You can say, "I handled that situation badly and I need to improve," without saying, "I am a terrible person." You can say, "I failed at this attempt," without saying, "I am a failure." You can say, "I trusted the wrong person," without saying, "I am foolish and can never trust myself again." Wisdom corrects behavior. Fear attacks identity. When you attack your identity, change becomes more difficult because you begin believing that the problem is not something you did. You believe the problem is who you are. Buddhism teaches that everything changes. This includes you. You are not permanently defined by one mistake, one failure, one relationship, one painful year, or one fearful pattern. The person you were yesterday does not have complete control over the person you can become tomorrow. But transformation begins with what you repeatedly practice today. If you repeat resentment, resentment grows. If you repeat fear, fear grows. If you repeat comparison, dissatisfaction grows. If you repeat awareness, awareness grows. If you repeat patience, patience grows. If you repeat compassionate truth, inner strength grows. Your mind is like a garden. It does not decide which seeds are good or bad. It grows whatever you repeatedly plant and water. A fearful thought may fall into the garden without your permission, but you do not have to water it every morning. You water thoughts through attention. You water them by replaying them. You water them by discussing them constantly. You water them by searching for evidence that they are true. You water them by rejecting every fact that challenges them. The more attention you give a thought, the deeper its roots may become. This is why you must become selective. Not every thought deserves your energy. Not every memory deserves to be replayed. Not every criticism deserves to become part of your identity. Some thoughts should be noticed and released. You may say, "This thought is familiar, but it is not helpful." You may say, "My mind has repeated this story many times, but repetition does not make it true." You may say, "I understand why I learned to think this way, but I no longer need this thought to protect me." This last sentence is especially important. Many negative beliefs were originally created as protection. Perhaps you learned not to trust because someone betrayed you. Perhaps you learned not to speak because people mocked you. Perhaps you learned to expect disappointment because hope once caused you pain. Your mind created rules to prevent the same injury from happening again. Do not trust anyone. Do not become too excited. Do not let people get close. Do not try unless success is guaranteed. These rules may have helped you feel safer during a painful time, but a belief that protected you in the past may imprison you in the present. The wall that kept danger out may now be keeping love, opportunity, and growth away. You do not need to hate the fearful part of yourself. Understand why it exists. Tell yourself, "I know you are trying to protect me, but I no longer need to live as though the past is happening every day." This is compassion combined with wisdom. You are not fighting your mind. You are teaching it that the danger has passed. When an old thought returns, do not say, "Why am I still like this?" Say, "This is an old pattern. I do not have to follow it." The thought may return tomorrow. Respond again. It may return next week. Respond again. Healing is not one perfect moment in which every negative belief disappears. Healing is the repeated decision not to give an old thought complete authority over your present life. Be careful about what you consume as well. Your inner voice is influenced by the voices you hear around you. If you spend hours consuming content that makes you feel afraid, inferior, angry, or hopeless, those messages may eventually become part of your thinking. If you constantly listen to people who complain, expect betrayal, and see danger everywhere, your mind may begin repeating their beliefs. This does not mean you must avoid every difficult subject. It means you must notice what repeatedly enters your mind. Ask yourself, how do I feel after listening to this person? Do I feel wiser or only more frightened? Does this content help me act, or does it keep me anxious? Am I learning, or am I repeatedly feeding fear? Protecting your mind also means protecting your mental environment. Choose words, conversations, and teachings that create awareness rather than confusion. Spend time with people who can discuss problems without making you believe that life is hopeless. Read ideas that challenge your fear instead of strengthening it. Allow silence to enter your life. A mind filled with constant noise has little opportunity to notice what it has been repeating. During silence, you begin hearing your inner patterns more clearly. You may notice that you predict disaster whenever something changes. You may notice that you insult yourself whenever you make a mistake. You may notice that you compare yourself with others whenever you feel uncertain. Awareness reveals the repetition. Once you see it, you can begin changing it. A useful practice is to write down the thought that troubles you most. Do not write a long explanation. Write the exact sentence. I am afraid I will lose everything. I believe nobody truly cares about me. I think I will never become successful. Then ask 3 questions. First, is this thought completely true? Second, what evidence challenges it? Third, what would be a more balanced sentence? For example, I will lose everything may become, I am facing uncertainty, but I still have choices, abilities, and support. Nobody cares about me may become, some people have disappointed me, but that does not mean nobody cares. I will never succeed may become, success has not happened yet, but I can continue learning and adjusting. The balanced thought may not immediately remove fear. That is not the goal. The goal is to stop fear from being the only voice in the room. Your mind needs another possibility. It needs to hear that uncertainty does not always lead to disaster. It needs to hear that one rejection does not define your worth. It needs to hear that mistakes can become lessons. It needs to hear that the future has not already been decided by the past. Repeat these truths patiently. Do not wait until you completely believe them. Practice them, because they are more honest than the fearful extremes you have been repeating. Eventually, the wiser voice becomes easier to access. One day, a problem appears, and instead of immediately saying, "My life is over," you say, "Let me understand what happened." One day, someone rejects you, and instead of saying, "I am unlovable," you say, "This hurts, but another person's decision does not determine my value." One day, fear enters your mind, and instead of obeying it, you say, "I have heard this story before." That is progress. The external situation may not have changed, but your relationship with your thoughts has changed. You are no longer allowing every sentence inside your mind to become a command. Remember that your mind listens to how you describe yourself. Be careful with statements that begin with, I am anxious, I am broken, I am unlucky, I am a failure. These words turn temporary experiences into permanent identities. Instead, say, I am experiencing anxiety. I am healing from something painful. I am going through a difficult period. I made a mistake. This small change creates space between you and the experience. You are not the fear. Fear is something you are experiencing. You are not the failure. Failure is something that happened. You are not the painful thought. You are the awareness noticing the thought. Experiences move. Identities feel permanent. Do not build your identity from a passing emotional state. A storm may cover the sky, but the storm is not the entire sky. In the same way, fear may fill your awareness for a moment, but it is not your entire being. Buddhism teaches that thoughts arise and pass. Even a thought that has returned 1,000 times is still something that arises and passes. It only appears permanent because you keep holding it. Open your hand. Let the sentence pass without repeating it. Let the memory appear without using it to predict your future. Let fear speak without giving it the final decision. You do not need to believe everything your mind says simply because it speaks in your own voice. Your mind may be repeating an old wound, an outdated lesson, or someone else's judgment. Listen carefully, but do not obey blindly. Ask whether the thought creates wisdom, compassion, clarity, and useful action. If it only creates shame, paralysis, confusion, and endless suffering, it does not deserve to control you. The mind becomes what it repeatedly practices. This may sound frightening, but it is also a message of hope. It means you are not trapped. If repetition helped create fear, repetition can also help create courage. If repetition strengthens self-doubt, repetition can strengthen self-trust. If repetition taught your mind to expect the worst, awareness can teach it to remain open to other possibilities. You cannot always choose which thought appears first, but you can choose which thought receives your attention, your energy, and your repetition. Every day, you are teaching your mind something. Through the words you repeat, you are either teaching it that the world is always dangerous or that uncertainty can be faced. You are either teaching it that mistakes destroy you or that mistakes can guide you. You are either teaching it that you are powerless or that you can take the next wise step. Choose your repeated thoughts carefully. They are slowly becoming the voice through which you experience your life. Do not repeat fear simply because it is familiar. Do not continue a painful story simply because you have told it for years. Familiar does not mean true. Old does not mean permanent. Repeated does not mean wise. You can create a new inner language, one that does not deny pain but refuses to multiply it, one that recognizes danger without imagining disaster, and one that corrects you without destroying you. Speak to yourself with honesty. Speak with patience. Speak in a way that helps you become clearer and stronger. Your mind is always listening. What you repeat today may become what you believe tomorrow. What you believe tomorrow may influence the choices that shape your future. Therefore, do not allow fear to be the loudest teacher in your mind. Repeat awareness. Repeat courage. Repeat the truth that you can feel afraid without being controlled by fear. Repeat the truth that you can face uncertainty without mentally destroying yourself. Repeat the truth that your past may explain your thoughts, but it does not have to control your future. Your mind believes what you repeat, so give it something wiser to believe. 7. Peace begins when you stop needing every answer. Many people believe they cannot find peace until every question in their mind has been answered. They want to know why someone changed, why a relationship ended, why they were betrayed, why life became difficult, or why something painful happened to them. They keep asking, why did they do this to me? Was I not good enough? What did I do wrong? What would have happened if I had made a different choice? Will this happen again? What if I never recover? The mind keeps searching because it believes the right answer will finally remove the pain. But sometimes, the search for an answer becomes more painful than the original event. You may spend months replaying one conversation. You study every word, every expression, and every moment of silence. You try to discover the exact point when everything changed. You believe that if you understand what happened, you will finally be able to let go. But instead of healing, you become more deeply attached to the past. Buddhism teaches that the desire to understand everything can become another form of attachment. Understanding can be useful. It can help you learn, grow, and avoid repeating the same mistake. But there is a difference between healthy reflection and endless mental searching. Healthy reflection gives you a lesson. Endless searching keeps reopening the wound. Healthy reflection asks, "What can I learn from this?" Overthinking asks, "How can I change what already happened?" Healthy reflection eventually leads you forward. Overthinking makes you walk through the same painful memory again and again. Some questions have useful answers, others only create more questions. You may ask why someone betrayed you. Even if they give you an explanation, you may then ask why they thought that way. You may ask why they did not value your love. Then you may ask why you were not enough to make them stay. The mind believes that one more answer will bring peace, but every answer may lead to another painful question. At some point, you must recognize that peace cannot depend on understanding another person completely. Some people do not understand their own behavior. They act from fear, selfishness, emotional wounds, immaturity, or confusion. They may not be able to explain why they hurt you because they have never honestly examined themselves. You may be waiting for clarity from someone who is still confused about their own life. You may be asking an emotionally unavailable person to explain emotions they have spent years avoiding. You may be expecting honesty from someone who has built their entire life around hiding from the truth. When they cannot give you an answer, you may begin blaming yourself. You think, "Perhaps I was not important enough to deserve an explanation." But another person's inability to communicate does not determine your value. Their silence is not always a mystery you must solve. Sometimes it is simply evidence of what they were unable or unwilling to give. You do not need to understand every detail to recognize what an experience did to you. Perhaps you do not know why they lied, but you know the relationship made you feel unsafe. Perhaps you do not know why they changed, but you know you were repeatedly disrespected. Perhaps you do not know why they left, but you know you cannot force someone to choose you. Sometimes the effect is clear even when the reason is not. Buddhism teaches you to see reality as it is, not as you wish it had been. Reality may be that someone left without giving you closure. Reality may be that the apology will never come. Reality may be that you will never know the full truth. Reality may be that the person you loved was not capable of loving you in the way you needed. Accepting this does not mean that what happened was fair. It means you stop demanding that the past become different before you allow yourself to move forward. Acceptance is often misunderstood. People think acceptance means approving of what happened. They believe that if they accept an experience, they are saying the pain was acceptable. But acceptance does not say, "This should have happened." Acceptance says, "It happened, and I cannot change that fact." There is a great difference between these two statements. You can accept that someone hurt you without believing they had the right to hurt you. You can accept that a relationship ended without believing the ending was fair. You can accept that the past cannot be changed without saying the past did not matter. Acceptance ends the argument between your mind and reality. Much suffering comes from this argument. The event has already happened, but the mind continues saying, "It should not have happened." The person has already left, but the mind says, "They should still be here." The opportunity is already gone, but the mind says, "I should have chosen differently." Your mind keeps fighting a moment that no longer exists. You cannot win this battle because the past cannot hear your arguments. It cannot return and behave differently. It cannot give you another chance to say the perfect words. It cannot become the version you now wish it had been. The more you fight with the past, the more of your present life you give away. Imagine carrying an old conversation everywhere you go. You wake up with it, take it to work, eat with it, and carry it into new relationships. Even when the other person has moved on, their words are still controlling your emotional world. They may no longer be present, but the questions they left behind have become permanent guests in your mind. This is why unanswered questions can become invisible chains. You think you are searching for freedom, but the search itself may be keeping you attached. Sometimes, Letting go means accepting that the full explanation is not available. You tell yourself, I may never understand why this happened, but I understand that I cannot continue living inside it. This is not weakness. It requires great strength to move forward without receiving the answer you wanted. It is easier to believe that closure will come from the person who hurt you. You imagine they will return one day, explain everything, recognize your value, and finally apologize. You believe their words will release you. But what if they never return? What if their explanation is dishonest? What if the apology comes but does not remove the pain? What if they tell you the truth, but the truth creates even more questions? Your peace cannot remain dependent on another person's emotional growth. If they must become honest before you can heal, then your healing is still in their hands. If they must apologize before you can move on, then they still control your freedom. If they must finally understand your pain before you can release it, then you remain emotionally tied to their awareness. Buddhism teaches that liberation begins within. This means you may have to give yourself the closure another person refused to provide. You may need to say, I deserved honesty, but I did not receive it. I deserved respect, but they were unable to give it. I may never know the full reason, but I know I cannot continue abandoning myself for an answer. This is how you take your power back. You stop waiting for someone else to unlock a door that you can open from the inside. Closure is not always receiving the final answer. Sometimes, closure is deciding that the question will no longer control your life. Consider how much energy you have spent asking why someone treated you badly. Now ask a different question. Why am I still allowing their behavior to control my present? The first question keeps your attention on them. The second question returns your attention to yourself. You cannot control why they acted as they did, but you can decide what their actions will teach you. You can learn to recognize disrespect earlier. You can learn to protect your boundaries. You can learn that love without peace is not enough. You can learn that another person's rejection is not proof of your lack of worth. You can learn that losing someone is sometimes the beginning of finding yourself again. The lesson may not explain every detail, but it can give the pain a new direction. Buddhism does not promise that every painful event has a hidden reason designed especially for you. Sometimes, suffering happens because people are careless. Sometimes, life changes without warning. Sometimes, there is no satisfying explanation. Wisdom does not always mean discovering why something happened. Wisdom can mean deciding how you will respond now that it has happened. This question is more powerful. What will I do with what life has given me? You may not have chosen the wound, but you can choose whether it becomes your identity. You may not have chosen the ending, but you can choose whether your life also ends emotionally in that moment. You may not control what was taken from you, but you can decide what you will rebuild. The mind often searches for answers because uncertainty feels dangerous. It believes that knowing everything will prevent future pain. If I understand exactly why they left, I can stop anyone else from leaving. If I discover exactly what I did wrong, I can guarantee it will never happen again. If I analyze every detail, I can protect myself from another betrayal. But life cannot offer that guarantee. You can learn from the past, but you cannot remove all uncertainty from the future. A person can do everything correctly and still experience loss. You can love honestly and still be disappointed. You can prepare carefully and still face an unexpected result. You can make a wise choice and still experience difficulty. This does not mean wisdom is useless. It means wisdom does not give complete control. Sometimes, the mind prefers a painful answer to no answer at all. It may say, "They left because I was not good enough." This conclusion hurts, but it gives the mind a clear explanation. The truth may be far more complex. Perhaps they were afraid of commitment. Perhaps they had unresolved wounds. Perhaps they wanted a different life. Perhaps they were simply incapable of appreciating what you offered. But because uncertainty feels uncomfortable, the mind chooses the explanation that attacks you. Be careful when your mind fills silence with self-blame. The absence of an answer is not evidence that the worst possible explanation is true. When you do not know, practice saying, "I do not know." This simple sentence can be deeply freeing. I do not know why they changed. I do not know what they truly felt. I do not know what would have happened if I had chosen differently. I do not know exactly what the future will bring. The fearful mind sees, "I do not know," as weakness. The wise mind sees it as honesty. You do not have to invent an answer simply because uncertainty is uncomfortable. Sometimes, the most truthful answer is that you cannot know everything. Buddhism teaches humility before life's uncertainty. The human mind wants to create complete stories. It wants clear causes, clear villains, and clear endings. But life is rarely so simple. People can love you and still hurt you. A decision can be right and still cause sadness. An ending can be painful and still protect your future. A failure can disappoint you and still redirect your life. Two opposite truths can exist at the same time. You can miss someone and still know they are not good for you. You can forgive someone and still refuse to trust them again. You can feel sad about an ending and still understand that it needed to happen. You can love the past and still choose not to return to it. You do not need to force life into a simple explanation. Sometimes, maturity means allowing complexity without turning it into endless confusion. The mind also becomes trapped by questions about the choices you did not make. What if I had stayed? What if I had left earlier? What if I had accepted that opportunity? What if I had spoken differently? What if I had been more patient? These questions create imaginary lives that cannot be tested. You imagine that another choice would have created a perfect future. You see only the possible benefits and ignore the possible difficulties. You compare your real life with all its struggles to an imagined life that contains no problems because it never actually happened. This comparison is unfair. You do not know what another path would have brought. Perhaps it would have been better. Perhaps it would have created a different kind of pain. Perhaps it would have led you back to the same lesson in another form. You cannot live every possible life. Every choice closes some doors and opens others. Peace requires accepting that you chose with the awareness, strength, and information you had at that time. You may know more now, but the person you were then did not have today's wisdom. Do not punish your past self for not knowing what experience had not yet taught them. You can take responsibility without becoming cruel to yourself. You can say, "I made a poor decision," without saying, "I ruined my entire life." You can say, "I ignored the signs," without saying, "I deserve every painful thing that happened." You can say, "I would choose differently now," without spending the rest of your life hating who you were then. Regret becomes useful only when it changes how you live today. If it only repeats yesterday's mistake, it becomes another form of suffering. Ask yourself, what is this regret asking me to do differently now? Perhaps it is asking you to speak honestly. Perhaps it is asking you to stop ignoring your intuition. Perhaps it is asking you to value time more carefully. Perhaps it is asking you to stop remaining in places where you are not respected. Take the lesson and release the punishment. You do not need to carry shame forever to prove that you learned. Sometimes people continue suffering because they believe letting go means the experience did not matter. They are afraid that if they stop asking questions, stop crying, or stop thinking about the past, they are betraying what they felt. They may think, if I move on, perhaps the love was not real. But healing does not erase meaning. You can honor what happened without remaining trapped inside it. You can remember someone without continuing to wait for them. You can value a chapter without rereading it for the rest of your life. You can carry the lesson without carrying the wound in the same way. Letting go does not mean forgetting. It means the memory no longer controls your direction. The experience becomes part of your story, but it stops becoming the place where your entire story ends. Buddhism teaches impermanence. Everything changes, Pleasure changes, pain changes, relationships change, bodies change, feelings change, thoughts change. Yet the mind often tries to make one painful moment permanent. It says, "I will always feel this way. I will never trust again. I will never love again. My life will never become peaceful." These statements are created inside the pain of the present moment. But a present emotion cannot accurately predict your entire future. Remember other moments when you believed you would never recover. Somehow, the days continued. Your breathing continued. Your life changed in small ways. The pain may not have disappeared immediately, but it transformed. This pain will also change. You do not need to understand every stage of healing before healing can begin. Sometimes, you only need to stop interrupting the process with the same questions. Imagine a wound on the body. If you keep touching it to see whether it has healed, you may delay its recovery. The emotional mind often does the same thing. It revisits the painful memory every day. It checks the person's life. It rereads old messages. It imagines conversations. It searches for hidden meanings. Then it asks, "Why am I still hurting?" You may still be hurting because your mind keeps returning to the place where the injury happened. This does not mean you should suppress the memory. Suppression is not healing. It means you must notice the difference between processing pain and repeatedly feeding it. Processing pain allows feelings to move. Feeding pain keeps building the same story. Processing says, "This hurt me, and I need time." Feeding says, "Let me imagine 10 more reasons why this happened." Processing asks, "What do I need now?" Feeding asks, "What are they doing now?" Processing returns your energy to your life. Feeding keeps your energy attached to someone else. There comes a time when you must stop studying the wound and begin rebuilding your life. You may not feel ready, but readiness often comes after movement. Start with small acts. Clean the space around you. Return to a routine. Spend time with people who make you feel safe. Move your body. Sit in silence. Write the lesson you learned. Take one step toward a future that does not include waiting for an answer. Every small action tells your mind, "My life is still happening." This is important because overthinking makes the past feel more alive than the present. Your mind spends so much time inside what happened that it stops noticing what is still available. There are still mornings you have not seen. There are still people you have not met. There are still versions of yourself you have not become. There are still peaceful moments waiting for your attention. But you cannot fully receive them while demanding that the past explain itself first. Life does not pause until you receive closure. Time continues moving. You must decide whether you will move with it. Sometimes, the answer you seek arrives much later. Years may pass before you finally understand why a certain ending protected you. You may meet healthier people and realize how much you were accepting before. You may develop greater strength and recognize why the old version of your life could not continue. You may one day feel grateful that a door remained closed. But you cannot force this understanding to arrive early. A fruit cannot be forced to ripen by pulling it open. Some wisdom develops only through time, distance, and experience. Your responsibility is not to understand everything immediately. Your responsibility is to remain present enough for understanding to develop naturally. Do not destroy today while waiting for tomorrow's clarity. There is another dangerous question the mind asks. Why me? This question often appears when life feels unfair. Why did I lose this? Why did I meet this person? Why did I have to suffer? These are deeply human questions, but when repeated endlessly, they can make you feel personally targeted by life. Buddhism teaches that suffering is part of the human condition. This does not make your pain small. It reminds you that pain is not proof that life has chosen you for punishment. Every person experiences change, loss, uncertainty, aging, disappointment, and separation in different forms. You are not alone because you suffer. You are connected to humanity through the reality that all lives contain difficulty. Instead of only asking, "Why me?" gently ask, "What does this moment require from me?" Perhaps it requires patience. Perhaps it requires courage. Perhaps it requires help. Perhaps it requires rest. Perhaps it requires a boundary. Perhaps it requires you to release something you cannot continue carrying. The new question gives you direction. It does not erase pain, but it helps you respond to it. Some people also demand answers about the future. Will I succeed? Will I find love? Will everything be okay? What if I lose what I have? The mind wants a guarantee before it relaxes, but no one can receive a complete guarantee from life. Even if someone tells you everything will be fine, fear may create another question. How do they know? What if they are wrong? What if something changes? The problem is not the absence of reassurance. The problem is the demand for certainty. Peace cannot be built on certainty, because certainty is rarely available. Peace must be built on trust in your ability to respond. Instead of saying, "I need to know that nothing bad will happen," say, "I trust myself to face life one moment at a time." Instead of saying, "I need to know that this relationship will last forever," say, "I will love honestly while also respecting myself." Instead of saying, "I need to know that I will succeed," say, "I will give wise effort and learn from the result." This is a more stable form of peace. You stop demanding control over every outcome and begin developing confidence in your response. Buddhism teaches that attachment to a particular outcome creates suffering. You may work hard toward a goal, but if you believe only one result can make your life meaningful, fear will control the entire journey. You will not enjoy the work because you are obsessed with the ending. You will not learn from the process because you are only asking whether you won. You will not recognize new opportunities because you are attached to one specific door. Non-attachment does not mean you stop caring. It means you stop making your entire peace depend on one result. You can desire something without allowing the desire to destroy you. You can hope without demanding. You can work without believing that failure would remove your worth. You can love without abandoning yourself. This same wisdom applies to answers. You can seek understanding without making your peace dependent on complete understanding. You can ask questions without becoming imprisoned by them. You can remain curious while also recognizing when a question no longer serves you. A useful practice is to ask, "Will this answer change what I need to do now?" Suppose someone left your life. Would knowing every reason change the fact that they left? Would it change the fact that you need to heal? Would it change the boundaries you now need? Would it change the respect you deserve? Sometimes the answer is no. You may still want to know, but you no longer need to know in order to move forward. This difference is powerful. Wanting an answer is human. Needing the answer before you allow yourself to live creates suffering. Tell yourself, "I would like to understand, but I do not need complete understanding to protect my peace." This gives you emotional freedom. You stop fighting the unanswered question and begin loosening your grip on it. Meditation can help with this process. Sit quietly and notice which questions repeatedly enter your mind. Do not answer them immediately. Notice the feeling beneath each question. Perhaps, "Why did they leave?" is hiding the feeling, "I am afraid I was not worthy." Perhaps, "What if I fail?" is hiding the feeling, "I am afraid people will judge me." Perhaps, "Will I ever feel better?" is hiding the feeling, "I am exhausted and need hope." The question may not be the real issue. The emotion beneath it may be asking for attention. Instead of answering every thought, offer compassion to the feeling. Place your attention on your breathing. Say, "Fear is present. Sadness is present. Uncertainty is present." You do not need to create a complete story. Sometimes, naming the feeling is more healing than explaining it. The mind wants intellectual answers, but the heart may need safety, patience, rest, or kindness. You cannot think your way out of every emotional wound. Some pain must be felt, accepted, and slowly released. Allow yourself to grieve without turning grief into an investigation. You can cry without asking what every tear means. You can miss someone without believing you must return. You can feel confused without forcing an immediate conclusion. You can experience uncertainty without treating it as danger. This is emotional maturity. You learn that not every feeling requires an answer. Some feelings only need space to pass. Think of a muddy glass of water. If you continue shaking the glass, the water remains cloudy. You may believe that more movement will clear it, but every movement creates more disturbance. If you place the glass down and leave it alone, the mud slowly settles. The water becomes clear without force. The overthinking mind is like the shaking glass. It keeps disturbing itself while searching for clarity. Sometimes, clarity comes when you stop searching for a moment. Rest. Breathe. Let time create distance. Let silence settle what constant thinking cannot solve. You may discover that the answer was not hidden. Your mind was simply too disturbed to see clearly. Or you may discover that you no longer need the answer as much as you once believed. Distance changes the importance of many questions. What feels unbearable today may feel less powerful after several months. The question that keeps you awake tonight may one day become a small memory. This is why you should not make permanent decisions from temporary emotional storms. Give yourself time before concluding that your life is ruined. Give yourself time before believing you will never trust again. Give yourself time before deciding that one ending has destroyed your future. The mind in pain cannot always imagine a peaceful future, but that does not mean peace is impossible. It only means pain is currently blocking your view. Buddhism teaches patience because inner transformation cannot be forced. You may understand a lesson intellectually long before your heart fully accepts it. You may know that you need to let go, but still feel attached. You may understand that the answer will not come, but still find yourself waiting. Do not attack yourself for this. Awareness grows through repetition. Each time you notice that your mind has returned to the same question, gently bring it back. Say, I have already visited this thought. This question has not given me peace. I choose to return to the life in front of me. You may need to do this hundreds of times. That is not failure. That is practice. The mind has spent a long time building the habit of searching. It will take patience to build the habit of releasing. Do not expect one moment of wisdom to erase years of overthinking. However, one moment of wisdom repeated daily can slowly change your entire relationship with the past. You can also create your own closing ritual. Write down every question you wish had been answered. Write what you wanted the person to say. Write the apology you deserved. Write the truth you now understand. Then end with these words. I may not receive every answer, but I release my need to remain trapped while waiting. The purpose is not to pretend that the questions never mattered. The purpose is to tell your mind that you are choosing life over endless waiting. You can keep the paper, destroy it, or place it somewhere private. The action symbolizes an inner decision. You are no longer asking the past for permission to move forward. Remember that closure is not always a feeling that arrives before you act. Sometimes, closure is an action you take while still feeling uncertain. You stop checking their messages. You stop asking mutual friends about them. You stop revisiting the place where the pain began. You remove reminders that repeatedly disturb your healing. You begin investing your energy elsewhere. At first, these actions may feel unnatural. You may still want answers. But behavior can lead the mind toward freedom. Each time you refuse to reopen the same door, you teach yourself that your future matters more than the explanation you never received. There is also a spiritual pride hidden inside the desire to understand everything. The mind believes it should be able to solve every mystery. It feels offended when life does not make sense. But wisdom includes recognizing the limits of human understanding. You are one person looking at one part of a much larger story. You cannot see every reason, every consequence, or every path that might develop. Something that appears meaningless today may influence your life in ways you cannot yet recognize. This does not mean you must create a comforting story about every pain. It means you can remain humble enough to say, "I do not see the full picture." This humility can reduce mental suffering. You no longer demand that life explain itself according to your preferred timing. You allow understanding to arrive when it arrives. Until then, you continue living. A powerful Buddhist lesson is that peace is not the absence of unanswered questions. Peace is the ability to live fully, even when some questions remain unanswered. You can still breathe deeply. You can still experience gratitude. You can still love again. You can still work toward meaningful goals. You can still laugh. You can still create a beautiful life. The unanswered question may remain, but it becomes smaller than your life. At first, it occupied your entire mind. Later, it becomes one small part of a much larger inner world. This is healing. The memory does not always disappear. Your life simply grows around it. A tree may carry the mark of an old injury, but it continues growing new branches. The scar becomes part of the tree, but it does not stop the tree from reaching toward the light. You can do the same. Your unanswered questions do not need to become your permanent home. They can become marks of what you survived. You may never know why everything happened, but you can know what you value now. You can know what treatment you will no longer accept. You can know the kind of person you want to become. You can know where you need stronger boundaries. You can know that your peace deserves protection. You can know that your life is too valuable to spend waiting for someone else to explain the past. These truths may be enough. The mind often believes the deepest answer must come from outside. But sometimes, the answer is the decision you make within yourself. Why did they leave? Perhaps you will never know completely. But you can decide not to leave yourself. Why did they hurt you? Perhaps their reasons will remain unclear. But you can decide not to continue hurting yourself through endless repetition. Why did life close that door? Perhaps the reason will appear later, but you can begin walking toward another door now. What if you chose differently? You did not, but you can choose wisely today. What will happen next? You do not know, but you can meet the next moment with awareness. Notice how these responses do not solve every mystery. They return your power to the present. This is the purpose of Buddhist practice. It does not give you control over everything that happens. It gives you greater freedom in how you relate to what happens. The past may remain unchanged, but your attachment to it can change. The question may remain unanswered, but your need to chase it can weaken. The uncertainty may remain, but your fear of uncertainty can become smaller. This is where peace begins. Peace begins when you stop believing that life must become completely understandable before it can become meaningful. Peace begins when you accept that some people will never give you the honesty you deserved. Peace begins when you stop confusing another person's explanation with your worth. Peace begins when you release imaginary versions of the past and return to the life that is still available. Peace begins when you understand that you can continue without knowing everything. The goal is not to become someone who never asks questions. Questions can lead to wisdom. The goal is to recognize when a question has stopped teaching you and started torturing you. Ask yourself, does this question help me grow, or does it keep me emotionally attached? Does it lead to action, or does it only repeat pain? Is an answer truly available, or am I demanding certainty from something that cannot provide it? Can I learn the lesson without knowing every detail? These questions protect your mind from wasting years inside a mystery that may never be solved. Your life deserves more than endless investigation of the past. It deserves your presence. It deserves your attention. It deserves your courage. It deserves the energy you have been giving to unanswered questions. Bring that energy home. Use it to care for yourself. Use it to build new habits. Use it to strengthen your mind. Use it to create relationships where you do not have to beg for honesty. Use it to become someone who trusts reality more than fearful imagination. You may never receive the perfect ending to every chapter. Some chapters end suddenly, some end unfairly, some leave sentences unfinished, but you are still the person holding the rest of the book. Do not stop writing your life because one chapter refused to explain itself. Turn the page, even if your hand is shaking. Move forward, even if part of you still wants to look back. Let uncertainty walk beside you without allowing it to choose your direction. You do not need every answer. You need enough awareness to recognize what is harming you, enough courage to release what cannot be changed, and enough compassion to give yourself time to heal. Your mind may continue asking for certainty. Gently remind it, we do not know everything, but we are safe in this moment. We do not understand everything, but we can take the next wise step. We did not receive every answer, but our life is still worthy of peace. Repeat this whenever the old questions return. Eventually, the questions may become quieter, not because you found every answer, but because you discovered something more powerful. You discovered that your peace was never hidden inside another person's explanation. It was waiting inside your decision to stop chasing what could no longer save you. The past may remain silent. Let it remain silent. You no longer need its permission to heal. You no longer need every mystery to become clear. You no longer need to understand everything before you begin living again. Sometimes, the greatest answer is not a sentence. It is the peaceful life you build after you stop asking the question. 8. Stop treating every thought like a warning. One of the most dangerous habits of an anxious mind is believing that every disturbing thought must mean something important. A fearful image appears, and you assume it is a warning. A painful possibility enters your mind, and you believe it may be a prediction. You suddenly think about losing someone, failing at something, becoming ill, or facing a disaster, and immediately begin asking, why did I think this? Does this mean it is going to happen? The thought itself may have lasted only a few seconds, but your reaction gives it hours of power. You begin analyzing it, fearing it, and searching for hidden meaning. You may repeat it so many times that it starts feeling less like a random thought and more like reality. But Buddhism teaches an important truth. Not every thought carries wisdom, meaning, or a message. Sometimes, a thought is simply a thought. It may have appeared because you are tired, stressed, emotionally overwhelmed, or reminded of something from the past. It may have been influenced by a conversation, a video, a memory, or something you saw earlier in the day. Your mind produces thousands of thoughts. Many of them are unplanned, unrelated, exaggerated, strange, or completely useless. You do not choose every thought that enters your awareness. Yet many people judge themselves as though they deliberately created each thought. They say, why would I think something so terrible? Does this thought reveal who I truly am? Is my mind trying to warn me? What if thinking about it makes it happen? These questions create fear around the thought, and that fear makes the thought return. The mind notices that you reacted strongly. It begins treating the thought as important because you treated it as important. The next time the thought appears, you become even more afraid. This creates a cycle. A thought appears, you become frightened by it. You analyze it. You try to remove it. You check whether it has returned. The checking brings it back. Then you believe its return proves that it must be meaningful. But its return may only prove that you have been giving it attention. Imagine someone suddenly shouting your name in a crowded room. You would immediately turn toward them because your brain recognizes your name as important. An anxious mind can train itself to react to certain thoughts in the same way. If you have repeatedly feared the thought of rejection, then anything connected to rejection will quickly capture your attention. If you fear illness, a small physical sensation may feel impossible to ignore. If you fear failure, one minor mistake may dominate your entire day. If you fear losing someone, a small change in their behavior may create a complete story inside your mind. The mind is not necessarily showing you the truth. It is showing you what you have trained it to notice. This is why fearful thoughts can feel so convincing. They arrive with emotional force. Your chest tightens, your heart beats faster, your stomach becomes uncomfortable. You assume that because the feeling is powerful, the thought must be true, but a powerful emotional reaction does not prove that a thought is accurate. It only proves that your nervous system reacted to it. A nightmare can make your heart race even though nothing in the dream actually happened. A memory can bring tears even though the event is no longer occurring. An imagined argument can make you angry even though the conversation never took place. The body can react to images created by the mind. This does not turn those images into facts. Buddhism teaches clear observation. Clear observation means noticing both the thought and your reaction without immediately creating a conclusion. Instead of saying, "This thought must be warning me," say, "A frightening thought has appeared." Instead of saying, "Something bad is going to happen," say, "My mind is imagining a bad outcome." Instead of saying, "Why do I keep thinking this?" say, "This thought has become familiar because I keep reacting to it." These small changes help you separate the event from the interpretation. The event is simple. A thought entered your mind. The interpretation is everything you added after it. Perhaps the thought says, "What if I fail?" Then your interpretation says, "This must mean I am not ready. Maybe I should stop." Perhaps failure is certain. Perhaps the thought says, "What if they leave?" Then your interpretation says, "They must be losing interest. I should become more careful. I need to control the relationship." Perhaps the thought says, "What if something is wrong with me?" Then your interpretation says, "This feeling must be dangerous. I need to examine it repeatedly." The first thought may have been harmless mental noise. The interpretation turned it into suffering. Many people are not only afraid of what may happen, they become afraid of their own minds. They begin watching every thought closely. They ask whether each thought is normal, safe, meaningful, or dangerous. This constant inner monitoring makes the mind feel like a place they can no longer trust. They may say, "I wish I could escape my own thoughts." But you do not need to escape your mind. You need to stop treating every thought as an authority. A thought does not become a command merely because it appeared. A thought does not become a prediction simply because it frightened you. A thought does not reveal your character simply because it was disturbing. A thought does not become reality simply because you repeated it. The mind creates possibilities. That is one of its natural functions. It imagines future events so you can prepare, solve problems, and recognize danger. This ability is useful when guided by wisdom. However, the same ability can create endless imagined disasters when guided by fear. Your mind can ask, "What if?" about almost anything. What if the journey goes badly? What if I embarrass myself? What if this relationship ends? What if I lose my job? What if I make the wrong decision? What if I never feel peaceful again? There is no end to these questions because the future contains unlimited possibilities. If you answer every "what if," another one will appear. You may answer, "I have prepared well." The mind says, "But what if your preparation is not enough?" You answer, "I have support." The mind says, "But what if nobody can help?" You answer, "The situation will probably be fine." The mind says, "But what if this is the one time it is not?" Fear does not search for an answer. It searches for complete certainty. Complete certainty is rarely possible. Therefore, arguing with every fearful thought can become an endless task. You do not need to answer every question your mind asks. Sometimes, the wisest response is, "This is another possibility created by fear. I do not need to solve it right now." Buddhist practice helps you develop this kind of restraint. You learn that silence can be a response. You do not have to debate with every thought. You do not have to prove it wrong. You do not have to understand where it came from. You can simply recognize it and allow it to pass. Imagine receiving a message from someone who regularly sends false information. At first, you may believe everything they send. After discovering that their messages are often inaccurate, you begin reading them differently. You do not necessarily become angry. You simply stop giving them complete trust. Your fearful mind can be treated in a similar way. When it says, "This will definitely go wrong," remember how many times it predicted disaster and nothing happened. When it says, "You will not survive this," remember the difficult moments you already survived. When it says, "Everyone is judging you," remember how often people were simply thinking about their own lives. When it says, "This feeling will last forever," remember that every emotion you have experienced eventually changed. Your mind may speak with confidence, but confidence does not equal truth. Fear often uses a strong voice because it wants immediate obedience. It says, "Do something now, escape now, check again, ask for reassurance, cancel the plan, prepare for the worst." This urgency makes you believe there is no time to pause. But unless there is a real and immediate danger, you are allowed to slow down. You are allowed to breathe before responding. You are allowed to ask whether the thought is based on evidence. You are allowed to delay a decision until your mind becomes clearer. A thought becomes more dangerous when it controls your behavior without examination. You may cancel opportunities because you imagined failure. You may accuse someone because you imagined betrayal. You may remain silent because you imagined humiliation. You may repeatedly seek reassurance because you imagined disaster. You may avoid change because you imagined that uncertainty would destroy you. Each avoidance gives short-term relief. The mind then learns, avoidance protected us. The next time fear appears, it demands more avoidance. This is how your world can slowly become smaller. At first, you avoid one uncomfortable situation, then you avoid anything that reminds you of it. Eventually, your life is organized around preventing fearful thoughts. You may believe you are protecting your peace, but you are actually teaching fear to control your choices. Buddhism teaches the middle way. This means you do not ignore genuine danger, but you also do not treat every possibility as a real threat. You respond according to the facts of the present situation. A genuine warning often has clarity. It points towards something specific. It may say, "This person has repeatedly lied, so protect your boundaries." It may say, "You have not prepared enough, so spend more time practicing." It may say, "Your body needs rest, so slow down." Fearful overthinking is different. It is repetitive, vague, and endless. It says, "Something feels wrong, but I do not know what." It says, "Keep thinking because danger may be hidden somewhere." It says, "Even after preparing, you are still not safe." Wisdom leads toward a clear response. Fear leads toward repeated checking. Wisdom helps you decide. Fear makes every decision feel dangerous. Wisdom may be serious, but it does not destroy your ability to function. Fear makes you feel trapped before anything has happened. When you cannot tell the difference, ask 3 simple questions. First, what evidence supports this thought? Second, is there a useful action available? Third, will continuing to think about this improve the situation? Suppose you are afraid that someone is becoming distant. Evidence may include repeated dishonesty, avoidance, or disrespect. In that case, wisdom may tell you to communicate or protect your boundaries. But if the only evidence is that they took longer than usual to answer one message, fear may be creating a larger story. Suppose you worry that you will fail at an important task. A useful action may be to study, prepare, practice, or ask for guidance. Once you have taken those actions, repeating the same fear gives you no further benefit. The purpose of thinking should be wise action, not endless suffering. When thought has completed its useful work, learn to put it down. Imagine using a tool after the task has already been completed. You continue holding it, examining it, and carrying it everywhere, even though you no longer need it. This is what many people do with worry. They prepare, but continue worrying. They solve the problem, but continue replaying it. They receive reassurance, but ask again. They make a decision, but repeatedly reopen it. The mind refuses to stop because it has confused thinking with safety. But thinking is only useful to a certain point. Beyond that point, it can become mental noise. You must learn to recognize when the mind has crossed from reflection into repetition. Reflection brings something new. It gives you insight, a decision, or a lesson. Repetition gives you the same fear in different words. Reflection may say, "I should communicate more clearly next time." Repetition says, "Why did I say that? What do they think? What if I ruined everything?" Reflection may say, "This choice contains risks, but it also contains opportunity." Repetition says, "What if I choose wrongly? What if every option becomes a disaster?" Reflection has movement. Repetition circles around the same point. When you notice repetition, name it. Say, "I am not solving this anymore. I am repeating it." This sentence can interrupt the cycle. You are not insulting yourself. You are describing what is happening. Awareness removes the disguise. Overthinking often pretends to be useful. Naming repetition reveals that it is no longer helping. Another helpful practice is to imagine your thoughts as notifications on a phone. Some notifications are important, others are advertisements, old reminders, or unnecessary alerts. You do not open every notification immediately. You glance at it and decide whether it deserves attention. Treat your thoughts in the same way. A thought appears, "What if they judge me?" You can notice it and decide, "This does not require action." A thought appears, "I have an important deadline tomorrow." You decide, "This deserves planning." A thought appears, "What if my whole life falls apart?" You decide, "This is too vague to be useful." You are not trying to stop the notifications. You are choosing which ones you will open. This is mental discipline. Many people believe discipline means controlling every thought. That is impossible. True discipline means controlling where your attention goes after the thought appears. Attention is one of your most valuable forms of energy. Whatever receives your attention becomes larger in your experience. A small worry can dominate the entire day if you repeatedly look at it. A painful memory can feel present if you return to it every hour. A possible danger can feel certain if you imagine it in great detail. Fear understands the power of attention. That is why it keeps pulling you toward the same image. It says, "Look again, check again, think again, make sure." But every time you return, you strengthen the association between the thought and danger. Sometimes, the best way to weaken a thought is not to defeat it, but to stop feeding it. This may feel uncomfortable at first. Your mind may say, "But what if this thought is important?" You may feel guilty for not examining it. You may worry that ignoring it will make you unprepared. Remember, you are not ignoring reality. You are choosing not to investigate a possibility without evidence. You can remain open to new information without mentally rehearsing disaster. You can be careful without becoming consumed. You can prepare without punishing yourself. You can respect genuine danger without making danger the center of your life. Buddhism teaches that attachment creates suffering. You can also become attached to fearful thoughts. You may hold them because they give you a sense of responsibility. You think, "If I remain worried, I am staying prepared." You may hold them because they make you feel protected from surprise. You think, "If I expect the worst, nothing can disappoint me." But expecting the worst does not remove disappointment. It only removes your ability to enjoy what is good before anything bad happens. You may spend years emotionally preparing for losses that never arrive. You may refuse happiness because you fear it will be taken away. You may avoid love because you fear heartbreak. You may avoid hope because you fear disappointment. You may avoid success because you fear losing it. This is not protection. It is fear taking your life before life has taken anything from you. A mind trained to expect danger can feel uncomfortable during peaceful moments. When nothing is wrong, it begins searching for something. You may notice this when life becomes quiet. Instead of enjoying the silence, you ask, why does everything feel too calm? Is something bad about to happen? Can I really trust this happiness? The nervous system may have become so familiar with stress that peace feels suspicious. This is especially common when someone has experienced repeated instability. Their mind learned that good moments could end suddenly. Now, whenever something good happens, fear says, do not relax. It believes tension will prevent future pain. But remaining tense does not change what the future will bring. It only prevents your body from experiencing safety in the present. You may need to practice allowing good moments to exist without questioning them. When peace appears, do not immediately search for danger. Say, nothing needs to be wrong right now. When happiness appears, say, I am allowed to experience this moment without demanding that it last forever. When someone treats you kindly, say, I can receive kindness without immediately imagining betrayal. This does not mean becoming careless. It means allowing reality to show you what it is before fear tells you what it might become. Fear lives in possibility. Awareness lives in reality. Fear says, this could go wrong. Awareness says, what is happening now? Fear says, they might hurt me. Awareness says, how are they actually treating me? Fear says, I might fail. Awareness says, what step can I take today? Fear says, I may never recover. Awareness says, what does my mind and body need in this moment? The present moment does not contain every answer, but it contains enough information for the next wise step. You do not need to solve your entire future. You need to respond to the reality in front of you. This is one reason mindfulness is so powerful. Mindfulness interrupts the mind's habit of turning possibility into certainty. When a frightening thought appears, return to direct experience. Feel your feet on the ground. Notice your breathing. Look at the room around you. Listen to the sounds that are actually present. Ask, what is happening here, not inside my imagination? Perhaps your body is tense, but the room is safe. Perhaps your mind is predicting failure, but the task has not begun. Perhaps you are imagining abandonment, but no one has said they are leaving. This does not guarantee that the future will always be easy. It reminds you not to live through a painful event before it arrives. There is a great difference between preparing for rain and standing under an imaginary storm every day. Preparation says, I will carry an umbrella. Fear says, the rain will destroy everything. Preparation is practical. Fear is dramatic. Preparation ends when the action is completed. Fear continues, even when nothing more can be done. Many people confuse pessimism with intelligence. They believe expecting the worst means they are realistic. They may say, I am not negative, I just understand how life works. But constantly choosing the worst possibility is not realism. Realism includes all reasonable possibilities, not only painful ones. Perhaps the plan will fail, perhaps it will succeed, perhaps it will lead somewhere unexpected. Perhaps the person will disappoint you. Perhaps they will prove trustworthy. Perhaps the future will contain challenges. Perhaps it will also contain opportunities you cannot currently imagine. A realistic mind remains open. A fearful mind has already decided that pain is coming. Buddhism encourages you to see clearly, without forcing reality to fit either hope or fear. You do not need to pretend everything will be perfect. You only need to stop pretending that everything will be terrible. Both are predictions. The wisest position is often, I do not know what will happen, but I will meet it with awareness. This gives you freedom. You do not need to spend energy defending yourself against an imaginary future. You can use that energy to strengthen yourself now. Take care of your body, develop useful skills, create healthy boundaries, build supportive relationships, save what you can, prepare for important responsibilities, then release the belief that worry must continue after preparation. You may notice that some fearful thoughts become stronger when you are physically exhausted. When you lack sleep, The mind may see danger more easily. When you have not eaten properly, small problems may feel overwhelming. When you spend too much time isolated, thoughts may become louder. When you consume constant negative information, the world may begin feeling unsafe. Protecting yourself from your thoughts also requires caring for the conditions in which thoughts arise. Buddhist wisdom does not separate the mind completely from the body. When the body is constantly tense, the mind may search for reasons to explain the tension. You wake with a tight chest, and the mind asks, "What is wrong?" It begins scanning your life for a problem. It remembers a relationship, a task, or a future event and says, "That must be the danger." Sometimes the physical feeling appeared first, and the mental story came afterward. Before believing the story, care for the body. Slow your breathing, drink water, rest, move gently, step outside, reduce unnecessary stimulation, allow the nervous system to settle, then examine the thought again. A thought that felt like a warning at midnight may feel far less convincing after sleep. A problem that felt impossible during panic may feel manageable when the body is calm. This does not mean every concern is caused by tiredness. It means your mental state influences how you interpret concerns. Do not make every important decision from the loudest moment of fear. Give yourself time. Another reason thoughts feel like warnings is that people sometimes misunderstand intuition. They believe every strong feeling is intuition. But fear and intuition are not always the same. Intuition is often quiet, direct, and specific. Fear is frequently loud, repetitive, and filled with imagined details. Intuition may say, "Something about this person's behavior does not match their words." Fear says, "Nobody can be trusted, and this will end badly, like everything else." Intuition may say, "Prepare more before making this decision." Fear says, "Do not decide because every option may destroy your life." Intuition guides. Fear overwhelms. However, distinguishing them requires patience and self-awareness. Do not assume that a thought is intuition simply because it feels intense. Intensity can come from an old wound. A present situation may remind your nervous system of something painful from the past. You feel strong fear and believe the current situation must be dangerous. But perhaps your body is remembering an earlier experience. For example, someone speaks in a tone similar to a person who once hurt you. Your body reacts before your mind understands why. You may feel unsafe, even though the current person has done nothing harmful. This reaction deserves compassion, but it does not automatically deserve obedience. Pause. Ask, what belongs to this moment, and what belongs to the past? The feeling may be old, even though the situation is new. You can respect the feeling without allowing it to judge reality alone. This is a powerful form of healing. You stop blaming yourself for the reaction, but you also stop making every present decision from a past injury. You tell yourself, "I understand why this feels dangerous. I will look carefully at what is actually happening." The mind needs both compassion and correction. Compassion says, "Your fear makes sense because you have been hurt." Correction says, "But this moment must be judged by present evidence." Without compassion, you attack yourself. Without correction, fear controls you. Buddhism balances both. It teaches kindness toward suffering and awareness of reality. You can say, "I feel afraid," without saying, "Therefore danger must be present." You can say, "This reminds me of the past," without saying, "Therefore the past is repeating." You can say, "I need time to feel safe," without saying, "Therefore I must escape every uncomfortable situation." Emotions are information, but they are not complete instructions. They tell you something is happening inside you. They do not always tell you exactly what is happening outside you. This distinction protects you from reacting impulsively. Suppose you feel jealousy. The emotion may be telling you that you fear losing someone, but it does not prove betrayal. Suppose you feel ashamed. The emotion may be telling you that you fear judgment, but it does not prove that everyone is judging you. Suppose you feel panic. The emotion may be telling you that your nervous system feels threatened, but it does not prove that an external disaster is occurring. Listen to emotions, but investigate wisely. Do not build an entire conclusion from one feeling. Another trap is believing that thinking about something can cause it to happen. A disturbing thought appears, and you fear that you have somehow invited the event. You may try to cancel the thought with another thought. You may repeat certain words, check things, or seek reassurance. But thoughts do not possess magical control over reality. Thinking about an accident does not cause one. Thinking about loss does not create loss. Thinking about failure does not guarantee failure. You are responsible for your actions, not every image your mind produces. The fear that thoughts create reality can make you terrified of your own inner world. You begin trying to keep the mind perfectly clean, but no human mind remains perfectly clean, peaceful, or positive. The attempt to control every thought creates more anxiety. Buddhism does not ask you to control the appearance of every thought. It teaches you not to cling to them. A dark cloud may cross the sky without changing the nature of the sky. A disturbing thought may cross your mind without changing your character or future. Let it cross. Do not build a home beneath it. Do not begin measuring whether it has gone. Do not demand that it never return. Its return does not mean you failed. Thoughts often return because the mind works through association. One word, place, sound, or feeling can bring an old thought back. You do not need to treat the return as a new emergency. Say, this thought has returned because it is familiar. Then, redirect your attention. Perhaps it returns again. Redirect again. Each calm response teaches the mind that the thought is not important. Fear expects a dramatic reaction. Give it neutrality. The thought says, "What if everything goes wrong?" You say, "That is a possibility my mind has created." Then return to your task. The thought says, "What if I cannot cope?" You say, "I will respond if something actually happens." Then breathe. The thought says, "You must figure this out now." You say, "There is no useful action available now." Then allow uncertainty to remain. At first, this may feel unsatisfying. The mind wants a complete answer. But peace often begins when you stop trying to satisfy every demand fear makes. Fear may ask for reassurance 10 times. Giving reassurance 10 times teaches it to ask an 11th time. Instead, practice tolerating the unanswered question. This is not carelessness, it is training. You are showing your mind that uncertainty can exist without becoming an emergency. Start with small moments. Do not check a message immediately. Allow someone to respond in their own time. Make a minor decision without analyzing every outcome. Complete a task without repeatedly checking whether it is perfect. Sit with an uncomfortable feeling for a few minutes without escaping it. Each experience teaches the mind, "I can survive uncertainty." Confidence does not come from knowing that nothing will go wrong. It comes from discovering that you can remain present even when you do not know. An anxious mind says, "I need certainty before I act." A trained mind says, "I have enough information for the next step." An anxious mind says, "I must remove this feeling before I continue." A trained mind says, "I can continue gently while this feeling is present." An anxious mind says, "I must understand this thought." A trained mind says, "Not every thought needs understanding." This is how freedom develops. Not through one great victory, but through many small moments when you refuse to obey mental noise. There may be thoughts that require professional support, especially when fear becomes overwhelming, disrupts daily life, or makes normal responsibilities difficult. Seeking help is not a failure of spiritual practice. Buddhist wisdom values compassion, and compassion includes using available support. Meditation, awareness, and wise reflection can be powerful, but you do not need to struggle alone. Sometimes, the mind needs guidance to understand patterns that have become deeply established. The important lesson remains the same. A thought can be experienced without being treated as truth. You can receive support while learning this skill. The goal is not to become someone who never experiences fear. The goal is to become someone who can recognize fear before it turns every possibility into a warning. Fear may still speak, but it no longer receives immediate authority. It may say, "Do not go." You ask, "Is there real danger?" It may say, "They will reject you." You ask, "Do I have evidence?" It may say, "Something is wrong." You ask, "What is happening right now?" It may say, "Keep thinking." You ask, "Is there a useful action?" These questions create a doorway between thought and reaction. Without that doorway, the thought enters and immediately controls behavior. With awareness, you have a choice. This choice is where your power lives. You may not choose the thought. You may not choose the first physical reaction. But you can choose whether you create a complete story around it. You can choose whether you follow it for the next hour. You can choose whether it controls your decision. You can choose whether it deserves your attention. This is the inner defense Buddhism offers. It is not a wall that prevents every fearful thought from entering. It is wisdom standing at the door, deciding what deserves to remain. Imagine your mind as a temple. Many visitors may arrive. Some bring kindness, some bring memories, some bring warnings, some bring confusion, some bring noise. You do not need to destroy the visitors, but you also do not need to offer every visitor a permanent room. A thought may enter the temple. Acknowledge it, observe it, ask whether it brings truth or only fear, then allow it to leave. Do not chase it down the road. Do not invite it back to ask what it meant. Do not spend the evening discussing why it appeared. The thought has gone. Return to your life. This sounds simple, but it requires practice, because the mind has learned to chase thoughts. Meditation trains you to return. During meditation, a thought appears. You notice it. You return to the breath. Another thought appears. You return again. The practice is not about keeping perfect focus. The return is the practice. Every return strengthens your ability to leave a thought without completing its story. You may begin meditation and think about work. Return. You think about an old argument. Return. You imagine a future problem. Return. You judge yourself for being distracted. Notice the judgment and return. Slowly, you learn that thoughts can appear without controlling your attention permanently. This skill enters daily life. Someone speaks coldly, and your mind creates a story. You notice it and return to the facts. A plan changes, and your mind predicts disaster. You notice it and return to the next action. A fearful image appears at night. You notice it and return to breathing. You are not suppressing thought, you are refusing to become its prisoner. There will be days when this feels easy, and days when the mind is very loud. Do not measure your progress by how many thoughts appear. Measure it by how quickly you recognize them and how gently you return. A quiet mind is not always a trained mind. Sometimes, life is simply calm. A trained mind reveals itself during difficulty. Fear appears, but you do not immediately obey. Worry appears, but you do not give it the whole day. Uncertainty appears, but you continue taking wise action. This is strength. It may not look dramatic from outside. Nobody sees the moment when you choose not to check again. Nobody sees the moment when you refuse to replay a conversation. Nobody sees the moment when a fearful thought appears, and you calmly say, "This is not a warning." But these quiet decisions are changing your mind. Every time you stop treating mental noise as danger, you teach your nervous system a new response. You teach it that thoughts can come and go. You teach it that uncertainty can be survived. You teach it that discomfort does not always require escape. You teach it that fear can speak without becoming the leader. Eventually, the mind begins trusting your calm response. The thoughts may still appear, but they lose urgency. The image appears, but your body does not react as strongly. The question appears, but you do not feel forced to answer it. The possibility appears, but you remember that possibility is not certainty. This is how the mind becomes peaceful, not because it has stopped producing thoughts, but because you have stopped turning each thought into a crisis. Remember the difference between awareness and alarm. Awareness says, I notice this thought. Alarm says, this thought must mean danger. Awareness remains curious. Alarm becomes certain. Awareness examines evidence. Alarm reacts immediately. Awareness allows choice. Alarm demands obedience. Your task is to remain aware without becoming alarmed by your own mind. When fear appears, do not attack it. Say, I see that you are trying to protect me. Then ask, is protection actually needed here? Sometimes the answer will be yes. Take wise action. Often the answer will be no. Let the thought pass. This respectful approach is important because fighting fear may create another internal battle. You do not need to hate the anxious part of yourself. That part may have learned to search for danger because of previous pain. It believes constant warning will keep you safe. Thank it for trying to protect you, but do not give it complete control. Say, I understand why you are afraid, but we will respond to what is real. This is inner leadership. You become the calm adult, guiding the frightened part of the mind. You do not mock it. You do not punish it. You do not obey every demand. You listen, examine, and choose wisely. Over time, the frightened part begins learning that you can protect yourself without endless worry. You can set boundaries without suspecting everyone. You can prepare without imagining disaster. You can leave harmful situations without avoiding all relationships. You can recognize danger without finding danger everywhere. The goal is not blind trust. It is clear seeing. Blind trust ignores evidence. Fearful suspicion invents evidence. Clear seeing watches behavior, notices patterns, and responds without exaggeration. This balance protects your peace and your safety. You do not need to become careless to escape overthinking. You need to become accurate. Accurate thinking says, this person has broken my trust several times. It does not say, every person will betray me. Accurate thinking says, this situation contains risk. It does not say, the worst outcome is guaranteed. Accurate thinking says, I feel anxious. It does not say, anxiety proves danger. Accurate thinking says, I made a mistake. It does not say, my life is destroyed. Truth is usually more balanced than fear. Fear removes balance, because extreme stories receive more attention. Your job is to return to proportion. Ask, how large is this problem in reality? Am I responding to what happened or what I imagined? Would I view this differently if I felt calm? What facts am I ignoring because they do not support fear? Sometimes, your mind notices only evidence of danger. It remembers every time someone disappointed you, but forgets every time someone supported you. It remembers every failure, but forgets every successful effort. It remembers every painful surprise, but forgets the many days when life continued normally. This is called selective attention. The mind does not show the entire picture. It shows the part connected to the belief it already holds. If you believe you are unsafe, you notice threats. If you believe you are disliked, you notice cold expressions. If you believe you will fail, you notice every weakness. To see clearly, intentionally look for the missing evidence. Ask, what else is true? Perhaps you are uncertain, but you are also prepared. Perhaps someone is quiet, but they may be tired rather than angry. Perhaps you made a mistake, but you have corrected mistakes before. Perhaps the future contains risk, but it also contains possibility. What else is true opens the mind when fear has narrowed it. This question does not erase difficulty. It prevents difficulty from becoming the only reality you can see. A person who sees only danger cannot live freely. A person who ignores all danger cannot live wisely. A person who sees the full picture can respond with balance. That is the Buddhist path. Neither denial nor obsession. See the problem, take the necessary action, then return to peace. Do not continue fighting a danger after the danger has passed. Many people carry yesterday's alarm into today. Something frightening happened, but the body remains prepared for it to happen again. A relationship ended, and every new connection feels threatening. A plan failed, and every new opportunity feels dangerous. Someone criticized you, and every audience feels hostile. The mind says, remember what happened, never relax again. But remaining permanently alert does not heal the past. It allows the past to keep controlling the present. You can learn from an event without reliving it everywhere. The lesson may be, watch for dishonesty. It does not need to become, trust nobody. The lesson may be, prepare carefully. It does not need to become, never take a risk. The lesson may be, protect your dignity. It does not need to become, never become emotionally close. Fear takes a useful lesson and turns it into a permanent prison. Wisdom keeps the lesson and removes the prison. Ask yourself whether your rules are protecting your life or preventing you from living it. Never depend on anyone. Never show weakness. Never try unless success is certain. Never forgive. Never relax. These rules may sound strong, but they may have been created by fear. Real strength contains flexibility. It can be careful without becoming closed. It can remember pain without expecting pain everywhere. It can experience a fearful thought without turning it into a law. Do not build your future from one frightened moment. Thoughts change, feelings change, circumstances change, your understanding changes. Give yourself permission to gather new evidence. A person who was once afraid may become courageous through practice. A person who once struggled may develop skill. A person who was once betrayed may later experience healthy love. A mind that once treated every thought as danger can learn to let thoughts pass. You are not permanently trapped in your current pattern. Buddhism teaches impermanence for this reason. Nothing within you remains exactly the same. Fear may feel deeply established, but it is also made of changing thoughts, sensations, memories, and habits. What has been practiced can be practiced differently. Begin with one thought. The next time your mind says, "This must be a warning," pause. Ask, could this simply be a thought? Notice what happens in your body. Take one slow breath. Look for present evidence. Decide whether action is needed. When no action is needed, let the question remain unanswered. Return to what you were doing. This small practice may seem insignificant, but it interrupts an old pattern. Repeat it every day. The mind may resist. It may say, "But what if?" Let the what if remain. You do not need to remove it before continuing. Carry uncertainty lightly. You may feel discomfort for a while. Discomfort is not danger. This distinction can change your life. Many opportunities feel uncomfortable. Honest conversations feel uncomfortable. Learning something new feels uncomfortable. Setting boundaries feels uncomfortable. Being seen feels uncomfortable. Letting go of control feels uncomfortable. If you treat discomfort as danger, you will avoid the very experiences that help you grow. Tell yourself, I can feel uncomfortable and still be safe. I can feel afraid and still take a wise step. I can have a disturbing thought and still continue my day. I can be uncertain without forcing an answer. These sentences teach the mind a new relationship with fear. Fear becomes an experience, not an instruction. A thought becomes an event, not a prophecy. Uncertainty becomes part of life, not proof of disaster. This is how you protect yourself from your own thoughts. Not by stopping the mind from speaking, but by refusing to believe that every voice inside it deserves obedience. Some thoughts carry wisdom. Listen carefully. Some thoughts reveal a real problem. Respond wisely. Some thoughts come from old wounds. Meet them with compassion. Some thoughts are only noise. Let them pass. Your peace depends on learning the difference. Do not give every thought the same importance. Do not give every possibility the same probability. Do not give every emotion the power to define reality. Do not give every mental image the authority of a warning. The mind is a powerful servant, but a dangerous master. When it serves awareness, it helps you plan, learn, create, and protect yourself. When it becomes your master, it creates fears and then demands that you organize your entire life around them. Take back your position. You are the observer. You are the one who chooses. You are the awareness behind the noise. A thought may knock on the door, but you decide whether to invite it in. A fear may ask for attention, but you decide how much it receives. A possibility may appear, but you decide whether evidence supports it. A warning may arise, but you decide whether wise action is necessary. This is mental freedom. Freedom is not the absence of fear. It is the presence of awareness strong enough to question fear. Freedom is not a completely silent mind. It is a mind whose noise no longer controls your direction. Freedom is not knowing that nothing bad will ever happen. It is trusting that you can respond without suffering through every possible tragedy in advance. The next time a frightening thought appears, remember this lesson. Do not immediately ask, "What does this mean?" First ask, "Does this thought mean anything at all?" Do not immediately ask, "How do I stop it?" Ask, "Can I allow it to pass without following it?" Do not immediately ask, "Is this a warning?" Ask, "What evidence exists in the present moment?" Do not immediately ask, "What if the worst happens?" Ask, "What useful step is available now?" When no useful step exists, release the thought. Let tomorrow remain tomorrow. Let possibility remain possibility. Let fear remain a feeling. Let thought remain thought. You do not have to turn every shadow inside your mind into a monster. Sometimes it is only a shadow. Sometimes the mind is only tired. Sometimes an old memory is passing through. Sometimes a random thought has no deeper meaning. Sometimes nothing is wrong. Learning to accept that nothing may be wrong is a powerful form of peace. Your mind may have spent years searching for danger. Be patient as you teach it to recognize safety. Show it the room around you. Show it your breathing. Show it the people who treat you well. Show it the problems you have already handled. Show it that a thought can appear and disappear without changing your life. Each time you remain calm, you give the mind new evidence. The evidence says, "We did not react, and we remained safe. We did not check, and the feared event did not occur. We allowed uncertainty, and we survived. We felt discomfort, and it passed." This evidence slowly becomes stronger than the old fear. One day, a frightening thought appears, and instead of falling into it, you simply notice it. You may even smile gently and say, "My mind is trying to protect me again." Then you return to your life. That moment may appear small, but it is a great victory. The thought entered, but it did not steal the hour. Fear spoke, but it did not make the decision. Uncertainty appeared, but it did not become suffering. You protected yourself, not from the thought's arrival, but from the habit of turning it into truth. That is the defense your mind needs. Not force, not constant control, not war against yourself. It needs awareness, patience, evidence, and the courage to let mental noise remain unanswered. Not every thought is a warning. Not every fear is intuition. Not every possibility is a prediction. Not every uncomfortable feeling is danger. Sometimes the greatest peace comes from recognizing that the mind is simply speaking, and you do not have to follow where it wants to go. The greatest danger is not always what happens around you. Sometimes it is what your own mind keeps creating within you. Fear can pretend to be wisdom. Worry can pretend to be preparation. Overthinking can pretend to be carefulness. Control can pretend to be protection. But when these patterns steal your peace, delay your life, destroy your sleep, weaken your confidence, and make every uncertain moment feel dangerous. They are no longer protecting you. They are imprisoning you. Buddhism teaches that freedom does not begin when every fearful thought disappears. It begins when you stop believing every thought, obeying every fear, and treating every possibility like a warning. Your mind may tell you that something terrible is coming. Pause. Ask whether it is true. Your mind may tell you to keep worrying. Ask whether any useful action remains. Your mind may demand complete certainty. Remind it that life has never promised certainty. Your mind may return to the past. Bring it back to what is happening now. You do not need to defeat your thoughts through force. You need to see them clearly. A thought is not always a fact. A feeling is not always a warning. Fear is not always intuition. Discomfort is not always danger. Uncertainty is not always a sign that something is wrong. Sometimes the mind is only repeating an old habit. Sometimes it is remembering an old wound. Sometimes it is trying to protect you with a method that is now causing more suffering than safety. Do not hate your mind for this. Train it. Teach it patience. Teach it to wait for evidence. Teach it that not every question needs an answer. Teach it that emotions can rise and fall without becoming emergencies. Teach it that one mistake does not define your life. Teach it that the future does not need to be controlled before the present can be lived. This training will not happen in one day. Fear may return. Worry may return. Old thoughts may appear during difficult moments. Do not call this failure. Each return gives you another opportunity to practice awareness. Each time you notice the thought without following it, you become stronger. Each time you pause before reacting, you protect your peace. Each time you stop imagining the worst, you take your attention back. Each time you choose one wise action instead of 100 fearful thoughts, you move toward freedom. You may never have a mind that is completely silent, but you can have a mind that no longer frightens you. You can have thoughts without becoming trapped inside them. You can feel fear without allowing it to choose your direction. You can experience uncertainty without destroying today. You can remember the past without living there. You can prepare for tomorrow without emotionally suffering through it in advance. This is the peace Buddhism offers. Not a life without pain, a life in which pain is no longer multiplied by endless resistance, imagination, and fear. Not a life without change, a mind flexible enough to move with change. Not a future with no danger, an inner strength that does not collapse every time danger is imagined. Your mind can become your enemy when it is left untrained, but the same mind can become your refuge when it is guided by awareness, compassion, patience, and wisdom. So the next time fear enters, do not immediately run. Observe it. The next time worry begins, do not immediately follow it. Question it. The next time overthinking traps you, do not search for another answer. Return to the next useful step, and when your mind demands control over everything, gently remind it, I do not need to know everything. I do not need to control everything. I only need to remain aware, respond wisely, and return to this moment. Protect yourself from your own thoughts, not by fighting your mind, but by becoming the calm awareness behind it. Because your thoughts may speak loudly, but they do not have to become your truth. Fear may visit, but it does not have to stay. Worry may appear, but it does not have to lead. Overthinking may begin, but you can choose where it ends. Your mind can create suffering, but with practice, the same mind can become the place where your freedom finally begins.